Hello,
everybody.
We are the more socially acceptable faces of the NotGames team.
Except Jay, he's never really been socially acceptable, even in the 80s.
Fair.
4 months ago today, we launched Not for Broadcast into early access.
And the response from you, the players, has been genuinely heartwarming.
You've given us the confidence to carry on in these challenging times.
And we think we've got something amazing to share with you on
June the
20th of June, June the 20th of June, which is when the bonus chapter drops.
But before that, we would like you to come back with us to a different world.
A world where nobody had heard of our little game.
A world where our biggest problem was whether Steam would stay up.
A world where we were all allowed to sit in the same room. But to be fair, I don't actually miss that bit.
No, me neither.
Nah, not me.
So, while we're busy polishing the upcoming super secret bonus chapter... right, yeah. Please enjoy this candid look back in time at the Not for Broadcast launch day. I've got a guest star. This is him. Why?
Andy's giving me the finger, which is fair.
This is what I have to work with on a daily basis, right?
I won't be anywhere near as sensible as these other boys.
So, I'm Andy. I am the CEO of NotGames.
My name's Alex. I'm one of the directors of NotGames.
I'm Jay, and I'm one of the creators of the game. I'm a writer, a director, and I write the music for the game.
My name is Dennis, and my key role within the company, I suppose, I concentrate more on the film and TV side of it for the FMV, and concentrate more on the editing, special effects, all that kind of stuff.
Hannah starts her stream in 25 minutes.
What?
25 minutes?
Yeah.
Fuck off, Andy.
We all said we wanted to do this game. It's not me.
That was 2 years
Change
ago.
my mind.
We're all tired now.
This game is about, which I think it's about a few different things. It's kind of the struggle between equality and freedom. It is political. We've always, if you go back to our backlog, we've always had political leanings within our games anyway, even back to the days of Not the Name We Wanted and Not COD. But this is something completely different. It's our own IP that we made for ourselves. Thankfully, the lovely people at Tiny Build decided to back us because it was a brand new concept. Nothing's ever kind of been done this way before. You come into the newsroom, the editing broadcast room, and you're not supposed to be there to do any work. You're just the cleaner. But as it turns out, the guy who was supposed to be doing is gone. He's fucked off somewhere. So he calls you in and says, "Sorry, mate, I've left. You're going to have to run the news tonight."
Not that it's a game at all, but I wonder who's got the most likes on their Facebook status.
Bears me. Bears my wank status.
What have I got? I've got 5, 6, 7 and 1 share.
7.
Andy.
How many has Andy got?
Andy's on 14.
Alex is on 40s.
Oh, fucking hell, he's 47, 48, 48. He's on.
Come on!
You, as a player, don't have any concept of what's doing, so he walks you through setting up the studio, and then he walks you through cutting new shots together and eventually censoring out swear words and things like that, as you kind of in the background learn that this new party, Advance, has come into power.
There's a shock election result where a brand new party come to power who appear on the surface at least to be very left-leaning. They do massive redistribution of wealth. They establish an ever tighter grip. I'm trying very hard not to paint them as a sort of evil dictatorship because the game isn't really about a battle between good and evil. It's really about a battle between this force Advance who represent equality and really want to correct injustice, really do want to redistribute wealth, are very well intentioned. And then you have Disrupt, who are your resistance movement, and they really are about individual freedom because obviously the more one makes people equal, the less freedom one has for not being equal or to express one's individuality. That to me is what the battle between left and right is really about. I don't believe that, you know, everyone on the right is evil and everyone on the left is good, because that's mental.
Not for Broadcast actors did an amazing job with workplace gossip and keeping it professional once they were on air. A number of the segments involved political speeches and made up sports events. How much effort goes into producing just one of these segments? Shit tons.
Then it's also a game based on the mechanic of vision mixing and making television, which is incredibly good fun to do.
the content for not for broadcast and the development of the content that goes into not for broadcast is very different to if you were coming at it from shooting a standard scene where you're allowed to shoot from multiple angles. You're allowed to cut and take breaks during a scene. You can use cutaways to disguise careful moves of people. So the tricky thing from my point of view, being the DOP on the shoots, was trying to find the best way to do that, where you have a single continuous shoot on sometimes a 4-camera shoot. There's no clever cuts in any of what we do. There's some amazing content out there at the moment that are doing these incredibly long shots. 1917's just come out. It's got these incredible one shots, and they use some very careful techniques of sort of cuts. We're not allowed to do that because everything you're seeing on camera is being shown in the game. Whether it should be broadcast or not is a different story. To be able to shoot that and to get it right, you essentially have to light on the fly. And shoot everything on the fly. You have to colour balance on the fly, because there are times when we have moving cameras from one setup to another, so they're moving from one lighting state into another room with another lighting state, but of course you can't cut, so everything is being done on the fly, which of course makes it more of a it's more of a musical dance for the cameras in knowing where each camera needs to be, what they're picking up, and kind of flowing in between each other so that they're not crossing each other on certain moves, because of course if a camera crosses something in a move, that's a camera that can't be shown live, and at all times we have to have at least one camera that can be shown for the gameplay to be able to work. So it's actually a bit of a breather when we get into the news studio stuff, because the news studio is one setup, they're static, they're sitting at a desk, and we had Bruce came in to help us, Storm Lighting came in to help us, the amazing help that we had, and they kind of set up the lighting state, and then we could just film and shoot with it. So it's actually a sort of a nice breathe out for us when we moved into the news studio stuff.
Arguably, we could have put the game out without the story and just put pop videos on the screens or what have you, and given people that very enjoyable editing experience. But when we were playing with it, was when we decided we wanted to introduce ever more complex mechanics, and to do that you kind of need to take your story over time. That led us into a newsroom, which led us to a political dystopian story.
It's about what power the media have and what power images have on the public and on our perceptions of things and of news, and how reporting things in a certain way. So like parts of the game, there's a news story and you get to choose 2 ways of portraying exactly the same thing, and you see the sort of the consequences of that. And I think that's a really big part of what it's about.
What you've also had between these levels is what we call the incident system. So this is the bit I actually ended up writing, but it's your personal story. Actually, it was suggested by our publishers, to be honest, and we leapt on it because we thought it was a really nice idea. But the main levels are about you controlling the news, propaganda, seeing how the country reacts to advance, to the resistance, to various news stories, headlines that you can pick and choose and everything like that. But the incident system, that's your personal story. That's how it impacts you. So you have various different choices, very different binaries as you go through that will actually, to be honest, make fairly large impacts on how your personal story progresses. It was really about bringing home the fact that the country is changing. And it's not just what you see on the news, but actually behind the TV screen yourselves, that personal story, just to be able to kind of bring that impact.
It's a fun in a broadcast room, under pressure type of game. It's memorable, it's repeatable because it branches, and it's unique. There's nothing else like it out there at the moment.
I'm just glad Anthony could be here to see this.
Oh yeah, he's been with us every step of the way, so an honorary member.
In our hearts and minds.
Credit to where it's due, Alex Patterson was the one who came up with the idea originally. He has, and we've had a really cool thing that he's found is his old sketch of the newsroom.
Almost 2 years ago to the day, actually, in February 2017, I drew like a scribbled idea of a game that came into my head, and now 2 years on, it kind of exists in the world, and now we're putting it out. to the internet, which is a terrible idea. I think I was on my way to work. I was working in a job that I hated, and I was walking down Whitehall, and there was a massive protest going on. I think it was like, and I got like lost in it. I think it was like Free Tibet, maybe. So I've been thinking for ages about what I was trying to think of an idea for a game, and I knew, because NotGames is such a weird team, that we're not like traditional game developers. We've come from theatre mainly, and film and TV and acting and stuff. So the fact that that was where our skill set was, and that's what makes us kind of different from other teams, I thought, right, that's good. That's something we should focus on that. And yeah, I remember being on my way to a shitty job that was just to pay the bills. And I had this idea of like a TV station, of that control room, which kind of is exactly what you see in the game now with the screens. And at the time, it was almost like a Guitar Hero, like a rhythm action game. You were cutting the cameras, but you were doing it sort of when you were told to, or like as, like DJ Hero or whatever, like there'd be like a scrolling thing or something like that was kind of what I was thinking. It was always going to be dystopian though as well, I think. It always had this idea of like the fact that it would get darker and darker as it went on, because that's just the kind of vibe that we always bring to everything. It's just like, can we make this darker and a bit political? Yeah, go for it.
What time is it?
3 minutes
Has it
past.
started yet?
Too late. No, she decided she knows the game.
She turned it on and thought it was
Yeah,
really
she played it once and gone.
It
"That's
crashed.
not
It was
for me.
really buggy, so she didn't play
I
it.
don't want to play that.
I'm certainly not going to take credit for the story, but I'm not going to give Alex credit for it either, because I think it just evolved while we were busy rowing, probably, or watching TV. We spent weeks with whiteboards, working out the history of the world, working out how we were going to tell this story. We had to make a lot of creative decisions really early. Like, one of the decisions we made was that this evil totalitarian state would come in from the left. And we knew that that would ruffle feathers, probably more so because the left is a little bit more sensitive, and I say that as a lefty, but we are a little bit more sensitive. We don't like to be criticised. We've seen so many amazing stories from the right, with the right-wing dictatorships. You've got The Handmaid's Tale, you have Hunger Games, you've got all these obviously fascistic, right-wing, elitism-based dictatorships and totalitarian dystopias, and Margaret Atwood's kind of nailed that side, so we thought it might be more interesting, and a more interesting story for the person watching it, so they don't feel like, oh, I know this story. Our totalitarian state, or our dystopia, isn't like that. It's much more Huxley, sort of Brave New Worldy, because Advance are genuinely from the left, so they're not ill-intentioned, they're not interested in rounding up groups of people and killing them. In fact, they're not really into killing at all unless they have to. They come with their own sets of controls and their own sets of limits on freedom. And of course, although at the moment the world is probably more under threat by the extreme right, historically that hasn't been the case. Stalinism came from the left, communism came from the left. Hitler campaigned and masqueraded as the left, with in fact quite a lot of socialist policies when he first got elected. It just seems a more interesting way to do it. And it also means that your resistance, because they're maybe funded by difficult sources like the right often is, are not as squeaky clean. And I think that's more interesting too.
It's starting to.
Shut up.
No! Stop throwing shit at me!
No.
I've lost track of time. December?
He actually has us as the thing.
It's happening.
And also the devs over at NotGames UK. I think
Yay!
it is now. Before it launches on Steam at 6 PM, give or take because it's Steam.
Have a go at Steve, for God's sake.
Day one, the election.
Please don't break.
Everyone shut up, forever.
It's okay, bud.
No.
You can do this. And I love that's the one we had the issue with the audio and the fucking subscription and everything like that.
152 people currently.
If we get 3 times this, we're on the front page of Steam. That's what we need to aim for.
Cool.
It was a complete departure from my last starring role. I played Sergeant
Rockman in Bullet Man.
What sort of things are people saying?
All nice things.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, people saying a couple of people saying it's stressful, but like I love this phone guy. They're talking about how he's clearly Farage.
Oh wow.
They're being really cool. They're like, I'd vote for this guy.
Oh nice.
It's all really positive. We've got another streamer who's quite big who's already emailed me to try and get a maker to do something.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So it's 6:15, and we launch in 15 minutes. And Steam, the only store we're in, is down.
So, I'd like to propose that we have a break again.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Before
That's
we
a fag.
take the videos out.
God almighty, Steam's down.
Are we still heading off at 5:30?
Steam's down.
Assets does he need?
What chance does that give us? It's not there, it's not on the internet, which is way beyond our control. It's like, we've decided to open a theme park, and then when we get there, the island we built it on has vanished. So that's quite stressful.
It's back. I've got it back.
Yeah, it looks like it is for me as well.
Oh yeah, now it's down for a different reason.
Fuck's sake.
And the sales are the key thing, obviously, to keep us moving onwards.
Steam is down. I'll cry for about 10 years.
No.
We got the fucking thing we wanted, and Steam's not even up.
Steam's down until 7:30, 8 o'clock, and people are just hammering it.
Oh, and that's the lunchtime in the US too.
Meanwhile, there's this live stream going right now, and we're all watching that. I've just nipped out to have a cigarette, and that's great, and people are responding really nicely to the game. So it swings and roundabouts, and you should hear my phone going off and going off. That's probably Steam's back up, or Steam's still down, or what have you. So God knows what's going to happen. I mean, how can that be? Why would that happen to us? How?
How can it be the one fucking day it matters?
Steam hates us.
They really do.
Steam's still down. We launched the game and stream as soon as Steam is up. If we want to come in there, blah, 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 blah.
It's back. Steam's up.
Is it actually back?
Oh, Julia, it's back in the US right now.
Steam's up a bit, not for 2 people. Well, it's up, but it's slow. So hopefully people will log in, go, oh, it's a bit slow, and think that's because of amazing numbers of sales of our game, which it won't be. But that could play well for us. You never know. And if it's even just up and people have to sort of clog a bit, I can live with that.
Hey, you to let me be sick in your mouth.
Enough to get this game off the ground. So how much does Tiny Build need?
Let me do the math. I'll get back to you. What if it was like food? Like, what if I was like feeding you like a baby bird?
Why do you think that would be better?
Because it'd be nutritious, it'd be nourishing.
So wait, so you're saying that you chew the food and then vomit as opposed to it going down and then come out?
Yeah, it's
I mean,
not
that's
like
better.
vomit, it's like food that you don't have to chew. If anything, I'm doing you a favour.
No.
The game is officially live, apparently. The game is live.
Apparently.
Can be bought.
Maybe you can get on Steam. Careful. You're almost too tall to stand
Champagne. I don't like champagne.
Yeah, why not? Champagne? Yeah, champagne.
Open the box of champagne.
Champagne. I got some really fancy ass champagne.
With the last money that we own.
Oh my god, that is fancy.
Right, keep away, shadow.
Congratulations.
Up and doing stuff, and you can buy it.
Can you buy it from the UK?
Yeah, I've just logged on.
You can officially, guys. Should we do it in here? Are we ready?
Right, camera people.
This is to celebrate the release of the
What happens if the game sells as expected today?
As expected. As I expect, or as we're projected to sell?
Well, if it sells as hoped, we break out the champagne. That's great. But I think the biggest thing for us is we get to continue. We get to finish making our story.
We drive on with the extension. We create the rest of the game. And you'll see 4 very, very relieved devs and 2 very relieved staff members walking around this office knowing that we now have a job for the next year.
I mean, obviously, if it could sell, if it sold 10,000 tonight on its launch, if it could get us some way towards our targets, that would be amazing.
I mean, if we go massive, then I suppose I then start enacting my shopping list and start going shopping, new cars, all those kind of things. But as projected, I think which is more realistic. I think we'll probably do enough for us to get the extension on the game, for us to create the rest of the game.
And obviously, when it's finished, if we were launching the finished finished game tonight, I would expect way more than 10,000 sales, because it's not the same ask, but you're asking people to buy an unfinished game in early access. I don't tend to do that unless I'm really interested in the game, or unless it's really close to being finished and I think it's going to make it over the finish line.
For me, I just would like to carry on doing this. Like, the best case scenario for me is tomorrow I get to come and work with my best mates and carry on making stupid jokes and buying life-size models of the prostate and things like that. So I don't really care about how many it sells, as long as enough people are into it and enjoy it, that we get to carry on doing this cool thing.
To have all of that hard work, like 6 years the four of us have been in this, trying to make games and trying to come together and do this. This is the biggest shot and attempt that we've ever had. So to be vindicated and be able to actually make, and that's kind of living the dream, to be honest with you. It's, for us, I think, I'm not sure I can put it into words fairly. I don't think there's anything else that's happened in my life that would be as important as this going well. I think that'll do.
Alright, cool. Cool.